She showed up unannounced, with a clipboard, a $200 fine, and a tone like she owned everything her eyes touched. "Your pool violates HOA guidelines," she said flatly. "You're under our jurisdiction now. Remove it within 2 weeks or we will." But here's the catch. Jack Reynolds was never part of the HOA. He bought that 5-acre plot outside city limits precisely to avoid this kind of nonsense. He did his homework, hired a lawyer, triple-checked every line in the deed. No association, no dues, no one telling him what he could or couldn't do with his land. And yet, here she was, Karen McAllister, the self-proclaimed queen of the Oak Hollow Homeowners Association, armed with fake documents, forged signatures, and the smugness of someone who'd gotten away with it before. She didn't just cross the line. She bulldozed it, fully convinced no one would dare challenge her authority. But what Karen didn't know? Jack wasn't just a quiet single dad with a backyard pool. He was a veteran, a fighter. And once he realized what she was really up to, he didn't just push back. He exposed a web of corruption that shook the entire community. It started with one illegal fine. It ended with a courtroom reckoning, public outrage, and a legacy-defining win for every homeowner who ever felt powerless. But let's start at the beginning. My name's Jack Reynolds. I'm 43, a retired Army vet, and a widowed father of 2 amazing kids. After 2 decades of bouncing between bases, bunkers, and sandstorms, I finally found my peace in Oak Hollow, a quiet slice of land just outside the city limits. 5 acres of freedom, trees, birdsong, and that fresh-cut grass smell in the morning. Most importantly, no HOA. That wasn't just a bonus, it was the reason I bought this place. I paid for a lawyer to go over every word in the deed, twice. I wasn't about to have some clipboard committee telling me what kind of mailbox I could have. You see, after my wife passed, I made a promise to the kids, and to myself. We'd build something real, a place with roots, somewhere they could grow up swimming, laughing, and healing. So last summer, I finally built that backyard dream. Big deck, fire pit, a flagpole flying Old Glory, and right in the center, an above-ground pool. The kids loved it. For the first time in a long time, we had smiles and cannonballs again. Then, one hot Tuesday afternoon, came the knock. I opened the door, still in my work boots, to find her standing there like a scene out of every HOA horror story you've ever heard. Aviators, blouse so stiff it could stand on its own, clipboard in hand. She looked me up and down like I was the problem. "Hello, I'm Karen McAllister, president of the Oak Hollow Homeowners Association," she said, not even offering a smile. "We've identified a code violation on your property. Your pool will need to be removed within 2 weeks." I blinked. "I'm not in your HOA." She didn't even flinch. "That's incorrect. Your parcel was recently annexed through a community vote. You should have received notice." "Excuse me?" She handed me a printed notice, $12,200 in fines, and said more would follow if I didn't comply. I thought she was bluffing. Some kind of mix-up. Maybe she had the wrong house. But 3 days later, a certified letter came in the mail. Same fine, now with legal threats. "Non-compliance will result in additional penalties and possible legal action," it read. Something wasn't adding up. So I did what any sane person would do. I pulled out every document I had. The deed, county permits, survey maps. Every single one said the same thing. My property was not part of any HOA. But then I checked the county recorder's office, and my stomach dropped. Karen had filed a document claiming my land had been voluntarily annexed. And there, right at the bottom of the form, was my name. Only, it wasn't my signature. It was forged. And let me tell you, friends, that was the moment I knew this wasn't just some neighborly misunderstanding. This was war. And seriously, how can something like this even happen in a country that claims to value private property? That someone can just decide your land is theirs to control? I mean, come on. But I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not after everything I'd been through. They picked the wrong man to mess with. Because this time, I was fighting back. The next morning, I didn't even pour myself a cup of coffee. I drove straight to the county recorder's office, hands still trembling from the night before. The place smelled like dust and paperwork. The clerk behind the counter barely looked up when I asked to see the annexation documents tied to my property. She slid the file across the counter. And there it was, my name on a form I'd never seen, next to a crooked, shaky signature that looked nothing like mine. "That's not my signature," I told her, voice low but firm. She nodded, like she'd heard that one before. "Then you'll need to file a formal affidavit of fraud," she said without blinking. Cold, routine. I signed the affidavit, but even I knew this wouldn't move fast. Bureaucracy is a slow beast. But Karen, she didn't wait. Just 5 days later, I pulled into my driveway and slammed on the brakes. 3 men in HOA vests were already on my land, taking photos of my pool, measuring, scribbling notes. They'd walked right past the no trespassing signs like they owned the place. "Hey, this is private property," I shouted, heart pounding. One of them barely glanced up. "You're in violation," he said. "You've been warned." I called the sheriff, and when 2 deputies arrived, I thought finally someone would stop this madness. But no, Karen was already there, polished and smug, waving her stack of fake documents like a magic wand. The deputies looked at her papers, then they looked at mine, and then came the words that made my blood boil. "Sir, we can't take sides in a civil dispute. Please remain calm." Remain calm? While trespassers measured my kid's swimming pool with the threat of demolition hanging over our heads? This wasn't going to be easy. I called a lawyer that same night, Joanna Ortiz, smart, fierce, sharp eyes that read every page like it owed her something. She flipped through the documents and scoffed. "This isn't just intimidation," she said. "It's felony forgery. We're going to bury them." I started documenting everything. I installed more cameras, took photos of the HOA goons crossing my fence line, logged every incident, every letter, every threat. And then Karen made a fatal mistake. She went after my neighbor, Bill, a Vietnam vet who didn't take kindly to bullies. She mailed him a certified letter accusing him of having an unapproved tool shed. Problem was, Bill wasn't in the HOA either. The second he showed me the letter, I saw it. Same tone, same threats, same fake annexation documents. And just like that, the floodgates opened. 3 more neighbors came forward. Same story, forged documents, threats, and lies. This wasn't about community rules. This wasn't about aesthetics or property values. This was a coordinated power grab, and I'd had enough. No more playing defense. Joanna filed an official fraud complaint with the county and launched a lawsuit against the HOA and Karen personally. Charges: forgery, harassment, trespassing, and civil rights violations. Then she dropped the real hammer. "We're also filing for an emergency injunction to prohibit any HOA enforcement actions against you or your neighbors." That shut them up for about 3 days. Then came the ultimate Karen move. I got home from work and found a stop work order sign nailed to my fence. From the HOA, not the city. Attached was a letter claiming that the HOA had contracted a third-party crew to begin removing unauthorized structures. They were threatening to tear down my pool. That night, I called the local news. I handed them the whole story. Forged documents, illegal threats, HOA overreach. I gave them security footage, legal filings, neighbor testimonies, and the very next evening, Channel 7 aired a 5-minute exposé titled, "HOA Accused of Forgery and Harassment Over Private Property Dispute." Public opinion flipped like a switch. The county supervisor issued a statement distancing their office from Karen's filings. The sheriff's department launched an internal review. And Karen? She doubled down. The next morning, I caught her on my property with her phone out, filming my kids swimming in the pool. That was it. I filed a restraining order. Karen was escorted off my property by deputies later that day. And guess. Chapter 3. The Big Guns. When Joanna filed the fraud complaint, she didn't just make a splash. She lit the fuse. We were done playing defense. She drafted a full-blown lawsuit against both the HOA and Karen McAllister personally. Charges: forgery, harassment, trespassing, and violations of civil rights. That last one. That was the hammer blow. But then Joanna leaned across her desk, looked me straight in the eye, and said the words I didn't know I'd been needing to hear. We're also filing for an emergency injunction to freeze all enforcement activity by the HOA. They won't touch a blade of grass on your land without risking contempt of court. For 3 days, it worked. Silence. No letters. No men in vests. I almost started to breathe again. Almost. Then came the ultimate Karen move. I got home from work, sun setting behind me, and saw something nailed to my front fence. Big red letters. Stop work order. Not from the city, from the HOA. Below it, a typed letter claiming they'd contracted a third-party company to begin immediate removal of unauthorized structures. Meaning, they were threatening to tear down my pool. That was the moment I knew I had to go public. That same night, I contacted Channel 7. I gave them everything: security footage of trespassing, photos of the fake documents, copies of the letters, and statements from my neighbors. The next evening, the expose aired. HOA accused of forgery and harassment over private property dispute. Let me tell you, public opinion flipped like a switch. The phones at City Hall lit up. The county supervisor issued a statement distancing themselves from Karen's filings. The sheriff's department launched an internal review into how those deputies failed to act. For a moment, I thought we were finally pushing them back. But Karen? Oh, she doubled down. The next morning, I stepped out with my coffee and nearly dropped the mug. Karen was standing inside my fence, holding up her phone, filming my kids swimming in the pool. That was it. That was the last straw. I filed for a restraining order that day. The deputies didn't hesitate this time. They showed up at her house, walked her off my property, and warned her, "Don't come back." And just when we thought the madness had peaked, the real bombshell dropped. As part of discovery, we gained access to the HOA's internal office records, and in the bottom drawer of Karen's locked file cabinet, we found it. A manila folder, labeled in thick black marker. Annexation Plan, Phase 2. Inside, blank annexation forms, signature templates, targeted maps. 10 more properties circled in red. She wasn't just targeting me. She was planning to take the entire street. And you tell me, how is this still America when someone can plan out how to steal your rights with a clipboard and a lie? What we found when they searched her HOA office. A folder labeled Annexation Plan, Phase 2, with templates of forged signatures and maps targeting 10 more properties. The courtroom was packed wall to wall. Neighbors, reporters, even a couple of county officials from nearby towns. People who had followed the story, outraged and eager to see how it would all play out. I sat near the front beside Joanna, hands clenched, heart pounding like it hadn't since combat. But this wasn't war with rifles. This was war with truth. Karen sat across from us, dressed in a pearl-white blazer like she was auditioning for sainthood. Her lawyer stood up first, launching into some weak argument about how the annexation had been done in good faith, and that the signature discrepancies were just clerical errors. Yeah, clerical errors. On 10 different properties. You could practically hear people scoffing. Then Joanna stood, calm, focused, a legal blade in a velvet glove. She handed the judge a stack of notarized documents. My real signature, legally verified. Then came the handwriting analysis, proving beyond doubt that the signatures Karen submitted were forgeries. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse for Karen, Joanna pulled out depositions from HOA board members. 2 of them testified under oath that Karen had pressured them into silence and acted without approval. And then, the final blow, surveillance footage. Karen on my land, yelling at my kids while holding a phone camera. The room went silent. The judge didn't need long. The court finds that the Oak Hollow Homeowners Association, under the direction of Karen McAllister, engaged in deliberate fraud, civil harassment, and repeated trespass against private citizens. Boom. The ruling hit like thunder. The annexation, nullified. The HOA, ordered to pay $175,000 in damages to me and my neighbors. Karen, fired, personally fined, and referred for criminal prosecution on charges of forgery and harassment. The HOA board, forced to rewrite their bylaws under county oversight for the next 2 years. And as for that pool, still there, still sparkling in the sun like a quiet symbol of freedom reclaimed. That weekend, we threw the biggest barbecue Oak Hollow had ever seen. Flags flying, music playing, kids splashing, neighbors laughing. We built a sign from reclaimed wood and nailed it to the front gate. Hand-painted in red and white. Private property means private. Epilogue. Standing your ground. They say freedom isn't free, and they're right. Sometimes you have to fight for it, even if it's just a backyard pool they're trying to take. But this was never just about water and decking. It was about the right to live in peace, without someone like Karen deciding you don't deserve it. About protecting what's yours from the clipboard tyrants of the world. So if you've got a Karen at your door, don't let her in, don't back down, document everything, get a good lawyer, and fight like hell. Because when you stand up to the abuse, when you drag the lies into the light, they don't win. You do.